This video is brought to you by Shadows of Doubt, the immersive sandbox detective game that's finally leaving early access on PC and hitting consoles on September 26th. Become the hard-boiled gumshoe of your dreams, solving an endless wave of murders across a procedurally generated city. You might recall I broke my own rule of not reviewing early access a while back because I liked Shadows of Doubt so much. It's a great story generator. I fondly remember calling a suspicious phone number, writing down the name of whoever answered, hacking into the phone records to trace the call to a building, poring over the phone book to find names with a matching address, infiltrating an apartment through the ventilation shafts and beating up and handcuffing the occupant, only to find I'd accidentally snuck into the apartment next door. And the full release of Shadows of Doubt will have even more opportunities for me to hilariously fuck up. Version 1.0 launches on PC and consoles on September 26th. Hello, children. Welcome to the Windbreakers podcast. I'm Daddy Yahtzee Crowshaw, and here's Uncle Jay and Uncle Marty.
Hello.
Happy 20th anniversary Lost. It's Lost's
Oh my
20th anniversary.
Oh my god, I
What?
still need to finish that.
Happy
I
20th
think-
plus.
I completely forgot what that was for a moment. I thought we were just talking about how you would somehow lost your 20th anniversary.
Oh no!
Like behind the couch or something. But anyway, we're talking this week about how to ruin franchises. No, for no particular reason. This is one of those topics we've had in the back pocket for a while. But I guess the topic resonates for me at the moment because I've been playing the Dead Rising remaster.
Ooh.
Alright, I'm gonna ask for your thoughts, but are you doing a fully Rambler on it?
I am, yes. But I'm not saying the remaster ruins the franchise. I'm saying of all the franchises that you could say were ruined by one game, Dead Rising would probably be up there for me.
Fill me in, because I haven't played any of them. Which
Alright,
one ruined
well,
it?
4. Dead Rising 4. The Dead Rising Holiday Special, as I like to refer to it. Because Dead Rising was always a game that had certain idiosyncrasies. The 72-hour time limit, the timed missions, the very unique, cartoonish psychopath boss fights. And Dead Rising 4 basically threw all of that in the bin and portrayed Frank West as the most annoying twat in the universe.
In what way was he annoying?
Well, I guess they were sort of channeling a sort of bad impression of Ash Williams
Mhm.
Oh no.
rather than... He was a relatively straight character in the first game, but they were trying to make him into sort of wisecracking, goofy hero
Because
sort of
Ash,
area.
Ash Williams toes this line. I love Ash,
Yeah.
as a character. But it is very much towing this line, and if you push it slightly too far, it can get really grating. Oh, that's such a shame.
He gets away with it because A, most of the time he fucks up, and that makes it more lovable, and B, Bruce Campbell's bottomless charisma.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, and in the original Dead Rising, it worked well because as like a character, Frank felt like the straight man in a world of just complete weirdos, and you could like dress him up as a weirdo, but he kind of didn't like. He never broke character. Whereas once he almost became too wordy, that's when you started to lose me a little bit.
Yeah.
Which sucks because I liked the Christmas premise of 4. Like I like the idea of like, especially in a game built around garish consumerism. It feels like Christmas, like that's a pretty nice match. But clearly it kind of ended the franchise, and maybe this is bringing it back, but who knows? The remaster.
It was particularly galling that they dropped some of the series' trademark gameplay elements, because it's so strange that even today there's almost nothing like Dead Rising in terms of its unique mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you'd throw that away just to be like everyone else.
It's funny because I made a just off the top of my head, I listed a bunch of franchises and where I think they started to go wrong, and some of them correct the course, some of them completely go off the rails, but it always feels like straying away from your original vision or mission statement, or even originality as a whole, and trying to chase a trend. Like I can't count the number of franchises I have here where they started to fall apart when it felt like they were no longer leading and that they were following.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's how it works, isn't it?
Very
You
easily done
either
though. Like
you either die
the
innovative or you live long enough to start ripping off the newly popular.
Yeah.
yeah.
Ah.
I think like sequel-esque games, you know, the ones that are pumping out sequels every year or 2 years are the ones that suffer from this the most. For me, the most famous ones are like Battlefield, which is just run itself into the ground. In the eyes of its fans. Hopefully they can claw it back because I do enjoy that franchise. Again with a shooter, Halo has done that by maybe jumping to a different company and then them trying to chase trends and trying to push things in the direction that they think fans want, but they don't necessarily want.
Well,
Yeah.
if a franchise goes on long enough, inevitably there will be a wane. But what do you think are the franchises that will just never go away? Because there have been plenty of franchises that have had bad installments that didn't kill the IP. Resident Evil, I put up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you: how many bad Sonic the Hedgehog games in a row would there need to be before Sonic the Hedgehog lost its saleability?
I mean, it won't stop, right? Because there was
No.
over a decade of bad ones, and I think that's one of those franchises where it's so funny to look at Sonic and Mario because they kind of follow the same course. They come around, they come along around the same generation. They have this kind of rivalry representing their two companies. They enter the 3D realm relatively in the same space, but whereas Nintendo felt like they took their time and like really believed in every new idea and iterated upon it. Sonic, starting with post Sonic Adventure 2, just really feels like fucking throw it out the wall and see what sticks. What if you control three characters at the same time? Oh no, okay. What if this is a big open world thing? You could kiss a human woman? No.
Mario and Sonic are definitely on the same hurdle track, but Sonic can't jump, and it's just like face planting into each hurdle
Ironically,
repeatedly over and over.
Ow. I think the difference for me is that Mario never lost sight of the core audience of like kids. It's a kids franchise, and it basically reinvents itself for every generation for a new generation of kids. Sonic made the mistake of trying to age with its audience.
Agreed. Shadow being the worst example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny. It's always funny to me when Sonic tries to be serious. And it's like, oh, this character is even like in Sonic Adventure 1, you get Shadow, or whenever you get Shadow introduced in Sonic Adventure 2, and you get the backstory of that, like, was it the girl or her grandpa scientist dad dies, or the girl dies? I honestly, I just can't remember what the story of Sonic Adventure 2 is, and I'm sorry, everyone who likes it.
Because I don't think they intended it this way, but the camp and the cringe that comes from that trying to age with your audience has become what I think a lot of the audience like. I don't think anybody likes Shadow in a serious sense. I think they like the kind of edgy cringe that he is, like him with a gun and stuff like that.
I think like
I think people who were 13 years old
at the time liked it, right? That was cool at the time. Yeah.
If you were 13 years old at the time Shadow the Hedgehog came out, you probably unironically liked Shadow the Hedgehog.
Oh, yeah. I don't think so.
I think so, because I think you hit that point in your life where you're getting older and you feel the need to validate the things you like, and you want to be like, no, this is for adults, and here's X, Y, and Z. Look, Sonic has a romantic partnership, and look, Shadow's got a gun. Like, look, this is. I know you guys are playing Call of Duty and everything, Grand Theft Auto, but no, Sonic is just like it.
I think there's like this middle ground, right? Because a lot of kids would just want to play what the older kids are playing, right? I agree with the arts in the sense of like, I think Mario has seen so much more success, not directly because of its IP, but because it's just reinventing itself for the next generation of children rather than trying to age. Like, I think Sonic in the long run might see, because like, are a lot of young children into Sonic at the moment? I think they must be, right? Because of the movies and stuff like that.
Yeah. I have like nieces and nephews who love Sonic. They love the movies. They love the animated series. They have Sonic toys and shit. Like,
they like the games though, because
I think
weirdly enough, no, none of them wanted to talk about Sonic Frontiers with me.
They like the Sonic IP. They don't like the game.
Because the games just have to exist for the IP to continue. And I think the fact is there's always going to be Sonic because the name is so recognizable. I mean, people who know nothing about video games know the name Sonic the Hedgehog. There's a fucking Bill Hicks routine where he talks about Sonic the Hedgehog. He calls it Sonic Hedgehog the whole time.
Sonic Hedgehog.
There's no the.
Yeah.
Sonic Hedgepig.
No, the bloody formal of him. Yeah. But
I
yes,
guess
I guess my
Pokemon's
question
that
is,
as well.
yeah, these are the franchises that have gone so long that they're basically immune to ruination.
Pokemon's immune.
That there'll
unfortunately.
always be hope for a new one, and they could always turn things around by bringing out a really good one, like what Resident Evil does every few years.
Yeah.
But what franchises have died, like sort of in the process of becoming that? What franchises didn't make it? Dead Rising, I would put up there because Dead Rising 4, frankly, just sort of killed it dead. Frankly, no pun intended, killed the franchise dead for me there. Infamous seems to have died with Infamous Second Son.
Yeah.
See, those are interesting because I don't feel like it is for a game like Infamous, it's not Infamous's fault that that we don't have Infamous anymore. It's the fact that Sucker Punch went on to do Ghost of Tsushima, and it sold so much better than Infamous ever did.
That's true.
And that's like the same thing I think with like Killzone and them moving on to Horizon Zero Dawn. Like they're never going to go back to Killzone because it's just like, why would we when these other games are printing money?
Although I did pretty well hate Infamous Second Son, as someone who really liked Infamous 1 and 2.
Yeah, you keep beating the drum about bringing them back to PC and modern consoles.
Yes,
it's obviously it has come back and regained life, but I think Metroid Other M did its damnedest to try and kill the Metroid franchise. And post, there was that huge gap between Super Metroid and then we got some of the Zero Mission, like the Game Boy ones, but then like Nintendo just forgot about 2D Metroid games for a very long time, for like for over a decade. And I think that push into 3D is something that did rock the boat for a lot of franchises.
Yeah, that ruined
tried to adapt into 3D and just didn't know how. Yeah,
there are
Castlevania.
Yes, as I keep saying, Sonic and Castlevania, the two franchises that never got on with 3D.
Yeah, Castlevania is a frustrating one because like all of the, for lack of a better term, Metroidvania Castlevanias are good.
Yeah, they're enjoyable.
Like the GBA trilogy, the DS trilogy, and then they just stopped. And I guess it's Ego went and formed his own company and made Bloodstained and everything, but it just felt weird that they just stopped.
Well, if you're holding out for Metroidvanias along the lines of Castlevania, I got good news for you. Go to Steam, look at those indie games because they never fucking end.
Yeah. I feel like every week Nick drops a code in for some upcoming indie Metroidvania.
I'm a huge fan of the 3D Castlevania Lords of Shadow game.
Yeah, I noticed.
I, really
I was about to bring that up because I noticed Eric just brought it up. It didn't feel much like Castlevania. It felt like God of War.
Yeah, but I like that, and I like the exploration of the IP. I love I'm a big fan of Castlevania. I love that kind of melding of all of the, the hammer horror kind of, villains and that kind of gothic aesthetic. I really like it, and I thought that series really could have gone somewhere. It's a shame the second one was absolutely garbage.
Yeah,
even more garbage.
I mean, there was a lot of promise to it. I mean, Dracula in the future, that's like an elevator pitch right there.
Yeah.
Castlevania's Dracula sort of fish out of water in the future. I think it's because they tried to do that on top of like 3 other things, and they should have focused on the Dracula in the future thing.
Agreed. Yeah, for me, a lot of the issue with like franchises that die, if we look more broadly, I think a lot of the things that die are like genres. Zombie games have effectively died out, and they were huge, 10 years ago.
I wouldn't say zombie games died out. Aren't some of the biggest PC games those like Project Zomboid, and there's a
yeah, but they're not being like churned out. They're being explored in the indie scene, I think, really interestingly. But like,
what about Days Gone?
Days Gone?
What about The Last of Us?
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah, Walking Dead is I don't know. It feels like zombie fiction isn't nearly as popular as it was 10, 15 years ago when
The Walking
post
Dead.
28
Yeah.
Days Later, Walking Dead, Last of Us, that feels even like Telltale's Walking Dead.
Yeah,
That
I don't
felt
necessarily
like
mean they're dead. It's more of just like we're not seeing 5 different zombie games a year as we were.
yeah. I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's been that we've sort of gone through the routine enough times. I think these days you need to have something as well as zombies to really stand out, like
Yeah, because there's only
Dying
so much
Light.
you can do, right?
Dying Light was zombies and parkour.
Yeah. State of Decay
Lollipop
is like
Chainsaw was zombies with a chainsaw and a
Last of Us
cheerleader.
was zombies, but with story.
zombie but dad. I mean, even
Yeah.
like Resident Evil isn't about zombies anymore.
No.
Like
Yeah,
7
you
and
do
8
fight a lot
don't
of zombies in them.
Yeah, but you fight like 7, so much of it is mudmen and weird yokels.
Yeah,
Mudmen
8
and dad.
but yeah, 8 is like hot big vampires and werewolves. And I mean Resident Evil though, as you know, we put Resident Evil 5 on the art, and you could argue 5 or 6, but I feel like that's a similar talking about Lords of Shadow, how that felt like it wasn't, hey, what should we do with Castlevania? It was more of, look how much money God of War is making. What can we do in our IP that's like that? And it's like, fuck it, we'll do this. And Resident Evil 5 and 6 very much felt like, ooh, the pendulum is swinging, and people want these sort of like more Hollywood action-oriented shooter experiences. This is the rise of your Call of Duties and your Gears and everything. And Resi 5 and 6 absolutely just felt like they completely, 6 especially, like turned its back on the actual horror of the series in favor of, well, maybe more people will buy this. And it is true, 6 did sell a shit ton, but people didn't really like it.
Yeah, 6 was like covering a lot of bases. They had like 3 different chapters playing as different protagonists, and in one of them it was sort of like traditional zombie horror. I think Leon's chapter was sort of more Resident Evil 4-y.
Yeah.
And then Chris's chapter was, you were literally like in a Call of Duty game, but with zombies.
Yeah. It's funny, that almost feels like the Sonic Adventure thing, where it's like we can't decide on what our core gameplay loop is. So when you play as Knuckles, you're treasure hunting, and when you play as Tails, you're in a robot, you're in a mech, and it's very bad.
What I hated about Devil May Cry 5. I hated that shift in characters in Devil May Cry 5. Like, I really enjoyed, I can't remember what their name is, the weird poetry reading one with the summons.
V,
fucking awesome. I loved him, and like I loved playing as him. And then every time we went back to Metal Arm Baby, I was like, I don't want to play anymore.
It's so funny because Casey feels the exact opposite. Every time we had to play as V in these streams, which we're wrapping it up this week, Casey's like, fucking, I can't believe we're doing this again. And I'm like, just think of him as a Pokemon trainer.
Like, if you played as V the entire time, and that mechanic and that character was explored to its fullest, I think most people would dig it, right? But it's because it's that shift up, that shift in gameplay.
It's like, this isn't what I expect from this.
So one of the other things Devil May Cry did that almost ruined the franchise was, of course, the ground up reboot.
Yep.
With completely different vibes.
If you want Devil May Cry, people could say 2 almost ruined the franchise. People could say DMC, the Ninja Theory one, almost ruined the franchise. It's a funny. It feels like almost every Capcom series has those doldrums.
They're trying to kill the franchise, but
for different reasons. Marvel versus Capcom. I mean, obviously we got the HD remake collection or whatever that just came out, which is great. But the last proper game, Marvel versus Capcom 3, kind of ruined the franchise because of Disney and Marvel and the MCU. Because it was no longer like, hey, let's just throw all these fucking characters at the wall, all these deep cuts. It was, well, we only want to use the characters that we own properly and that we're not sharing with Sony. And so here's just a bunch of MCU characters and a couple Capcom characters on the side, which isn't what that series was about. Yeah.
Where's my Frank West? Where's my Frank West in my Marvel vs. Capcom?
You just want Frank. He covered wars, you know.
Yes. You know what I really like about Frank West, not to digress too long, but he's really unsettlingly weird looking for a protagonist.
Potato face.
It's like you can't decide which part of his face is the most bulbous and weird.
It would be funny if they shifted the bulbousness of his face each cutscene. They just shifted it.
Oh, sorry, Chad, I misspoke. Yeah, I meant infinite. If I said 3, my apologies. Please stop yelling at me and DMing me and yelling at me. It's very
No,
early.
continue.
No, stop yelling at me. Other franchises we talk about a lot that unceremoniously ended for different reasons. In my opinion, Metal Gear was just breaking up with Kojima. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there was. You can prefer certain Metal Gear games over the other ones, but it never felt like from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 that it ever sort of completely lost its way. Maybe 5 just because of the
Well, it never really found its way, did it? Every installment sort of like blazing its own trail in its own way.
See, yeah, that's the secret. Is you can't ruin a franchise if you just do something different every single time. No one knows what to expect.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
MGS1 is not
Hunter.
MGS2, is not 3, is not 4.
No,
I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Monster Hunter franchise, but they do something similar, which is each installment they'll create this completely new mechanic that's super cool and interesting and pushes the series in a new direction. So, for example, in their latest game, they added this like wire bug mechanic where you can dash around. It's really fun. But every time they bring out a new game, they completely remove the new thing they've brought and bring in something else. Which
yeah, I
in
know
some ways
Casey's
is
super bummed that like it doesn't look like the wire bugs in Wild.
there's no they've announced that there's no wire bugs in Wild.
Yeah.
So people are just like, why have you added this thing that like revolutionizes how we play the game and now completely removing it?
Yeah,
But at least they're experimenting and moving the the IP forward in a way. There's ups and downs.
Okay, what
Yeah.
else was ruined? Lost Planet. Did you ever play Lost Planet back in the day?
No.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever played Lost Planet 3. I liked Lost Planet 1 quite a bit. I don't know if I ever got to 3. I think I played some of 2.
I think that's another franchise that was sort of doing a completely different thing with every installment.
Yeah.
Lost Planet 3 was, well, it didn't feel like what people liked about Lost Planet 1 and 2, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was less of the giant robot stuff and more of the sort of Dead Space, but with no horror or anything interesting to say about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and then Dead Space, the same thing. Dead Space, like 1 and
Dead
2.
Space.
Oh,
And then you got 3 and you co-op.
Right,
yes, that's another classic way franchises are ruined, by trying to add a multiplayer focus to a previously single-player franchise. See also the Fear series.
Yeah.
When they brought out Fear 3, and suddenly it was all, if you're not playing 2-player, you're not getting the full experience.
Yeah.
What makes
Is
you
that
think
just the
I've
death knell for
become-
horror? Because Resi did the same thing. Is that the death knell for horror?
Yes, horror doesn't
I've-
work in multiplayer. It's
I've always said that. I think a different kind of horror works in multiplayer. I think something like Friday the 13th, the game, works pretty well.
Sure.
But this traditional narrative horror doesn't really work in multiplayer because horror lives and dies on immersion, and you can't stay immersed if you've got another person there constantly reminding you that you're not in the game, you're in the world, and there's another person from the real world here with you.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Did Silent Hill ever go multiplayer? Was that shitty Vita game multiplayer, the top-down dungeon crawler one, Book of Memories?
Well, if it wasn't, one wonders what the point of shifting the gameplay that much was.
Yeah. But Silent Hill, there's we've talked about it at length, but there's a franchise that outsourcing the development to the West seems like ultimately after the first 4 games, that's ultimately what was the death knell.
See, the first 4 games, they were all made by like different individuals. Team Silent had a lot of turnover, right? But yeah, I guess it's just that any Silent Hill game not made by Japanese people just kind of didn't really get it.
You never see Western companies outsourcing games to the East, do you? Interesting.
No, it's funny that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because most Western animation is outsourced to the East.
Yeah, and the special effects, so much of the VFX industry is that. I obviously, when writing a lot of these down, I was also thinking of Nintendo. Shocking. And I even feel like Mario and Zelda never got ruined, but I think that they absolutely had like stumbles that made me kind of question the direction. And with Mario, mine is just ultimately all of the new Super Mario stuff, like the actual capital N new. I hate that art style, and I just don't. Ironically, because we put up the Battle Masters episode today, which everyone should go watch, on Super Mario, the original Super Mario Brothers. I don't like how that plays, and I don't like the way New Super Mario U, New Super Luigi U, whatever those games are. I don't like how those feel, and they feel to me they feel very restrictive. Like you're even seeing the footage now. One thing I love about Mario 3 and Mario World and Yoshi's Island is it feels like the world is big and expansive, and there's stuff to explore above the top of the screen. Whereas with these games, they just feel almost claustrophobic, like you're going down a hallway, and that's something I never got from the 3D Mario games.
Well, the interesting thing is that Mario has sort of branched. It's branched into Tentpole Mario, which is where all the progress happens. Mario Brothers, Mario 3, Mario World, Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Galaxy, Odyssey. And the other branch is Nostalgia Mario, which is games that bank on nostalgia for previous eras of the Tentpole series.
Yeah.
So in that you get your new Mario Brothers series, which are mostly 2D focused. Your 3D Land games, which usually are evoking something between the 64 and Galaxy sort of time period. And the sort of be all and end all of the nostalgia branch was, of course, Mario Maker and Mario Maker 2, because then it was like, we're done with 2D Mario. Over to you.
Yeah.
I think there's
I am convinced. I'm absolutely sure this is going to happen at some point. Who knows when? They're going to do 3D Mario Maker. They're going to do 3D Mario Maker, where you can make 3D Mario levels, sort of with a sort of block-based Minecraft-like development system.
Messy.
So you can make Mario 64 style levels.
I mean, there's already a mod for it.
If they're not planning to do it, they bloody well should be, because that's free money on the table.
Yeah. Eric's brought it up. It already exists in mods for 64. They make custom levels that are super, super difficult. They're definitely doing it for sure.
I do not think in the next 20 years we will see a official 3D Mario Maker. I think you guys are
put your money where your mouth is, Marty Slaver.
I'm willing to.
I would be. I would. I don't know how we bet this.
I reckon we're going to get it in the next 5 years.
That is insane.
There were fan-made 2D ROM hacking tools for making 2D Mario levels before Mario Maker came out.
Making 2D block-based games and empowering the user in a very simple UI is so different. And I don't know why I'm talking to you two about this. You two know a million times more about design than I do. But it is so much simpler and user-friendly, which is what Nintendo is all about.
No, you're right.
I can't imagine Nintendo giving the tools to 3D user-generated content to players. Like I can't imagine that. And it's funny because an interview with the Zelda devs today, leading up to Echoes of Wisdom, which comes out later this week, came out, and they said originally when they were tooling around with it, it was designed as a 2D Zelda maker, which makes sense because the Link's Awakening remake had a little bit of that, like kind of a little bit of like the dungeon creation, like as a side thing. And ever since Mario Maker, people were like, do a top-down 2D Zelda maker. And so that makes sense. But again, like the shift from 2D to 3D to me, I just can't wrap my head around it.
My prediction, and I want this on record, we can date it today. My prediction is they will bring out Mario Maker 3. And it will be expanded for better 2D design. There'll be more, custom levels and a campaign like they did in 2. But they will also include a, let's say, more specialized rudimentary 3D element maker in it. So it's not the tentpole of how you make levels, but they give the audience the power to be able to do it, and the tools can be less user friendly and more rudimentary because it's not the main thing in it.
Well, you don't. I imagine that there'll be lots of limitations to it because, as you say, you want it to be user friendly, like Minecraft, for example.
Yeah.
And you don't want the player base to be able to make anything more sophisticated than what Nintendo itself can make with new tentpole Mario games.
Yeah, it'd have to be grid based. It'd have to be grid based. It'd have to be based on. Okay, yeah. I'm just theorizing how they could do it, and I don't want to go too deep into that. It'll get boring. I reckon it's gonna happen. I can see it.
I don't see a Zelda maker working just because Zelda is much less primary loop focused than Mario. You can make a Mario level and just play it, and bam, you've made a Mario level. Zelda is sort of built across like multiple dungeons and an overworld, isn't it?
Yeah, there's like I think a game is literally called Dungeon Maker that where you just make kind of 2D top-down Zelda-esque dungeons, and that is something that you could make, like those kind of challenges. I don't think you could do that like story-wise, right? You couldn't like create. I don't think the tools are there to make something sort of cohesive in between those. But I think as individual dungeons with sort of puzzles and enemies and encounters. I could imagine that wouldn't be as good as what
it would get stale very quick in the sense of, as a maker, you would only, the thing that makes Zelda is getting all of the new items and seeing the new applications you can get through that, right? And a lot of the things that you do in Mario Maker or something along those lines is small bite-sized levels that have varying degrees of challenge. Getting the same items over and over, or like seeing the same bosses over and over as the climax of each section might become even more repetitive than like a Mario Maker, and I think there's just less you can do.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah, that's that'll
think
be.
any-
Oh, go ahead.
Would you describe any individual Zelda game as ruining the franchise?
So
CDI.
Just to get back on topic.
The CDI, yeah, those kind of felt like weird factotum
Well,
blips that no one
They
really paid
didn't,
attention
yeah,
to. Right?
they didn't so much ruin the franchise going forward as sort of take the franchise and put it through some hideous, perverse filter.
I would say the move that leaves the worst taste in my mouth, looking back on it, is oddly enough the gap between Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Because talking earlier about chasing trends, that felt like Nintendo listening to the early online feedback of angry fans seeing Wind Waker and being like, "This is not my Zelda. I want it to be realistic. I want to point to people and be like, look, the thing I liked as a kid, it's adult.
This is not brown enough.
Yeah,
this needs to be browner."
And it felt like they were like, "All right, well, here you go. Here's Twilight Princess." And when I replayed all of the Zelda games the other year, that was aside from Zelda 2, that was my least favorite. And because it felt like they weren't sticking to their guns. It felt like they were making the game we thought they wanted us to make. We thought we wanted, as opposed to the game they wanted to make. And even for all its blemishes, Skyward Sword to me is better than Twilight Princess, because at least it felt like they had a fucking idea when they went out there and they stuck.
It's astonishingly long, Twilight Princess, as well. It's like got like 15 dungeons or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it was actually the longest of, I guess, unless you're like 100%ing Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. But
and Wind Waker, still the best in my view, has what, 5 dungeons?
Yeah, and especially once they shored up the like the Triforce quest and everything, and allowed you to quick sail, that game became much faster.
Even more so.
Yeah. In terms of like putting a game that feels like it did kill a franchise that hasn't come back in the better part of a decade, was SimCity 2013. Like SimCity felt like a thing that was going to be around forever, and then it had carved
out a niche for itself, but then they put out a shitty one, and City Skylines jumped into the gap, and now City Skylines is the thing that fills that niche.
Yeah.
And in that grave real quick.
Yeah. You got to jump in fast, like what Fortnite did to PUBG as well. Someone carves out a niche but fucks it up, so you kick them out of the niche and you sit in the niche.
You basically remake one of the super popular AAA franchises and just wait for them to ruin it, and then immediately release the like nostalgia bait.
Someone make an indie Dead Rising game.
There we go.
We glossed over it earlier. Jay, you obviously are a fan of the franchise. Do you think Pokemon? Is there an individual game where it felt like Pokemon started to lose the goodwill, or started to lose your goodwill, or
Arceus?
Was that recent? So you were fine all the way up until like 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
I think Pokemon's been dead for years, but people just keep buying a corpse. Well, including me.
You buy 2 copies of it.
Yeah, I know, but I buy it and give the other copy to someone to play with, so we can.
It's Sonic the Hedgehog again, isn't it? People want the IP, and the games are sort of an unfortunate formality of the IP continuing to exist.
Yeah.
My kids, same with your nieces and nephews with Sonic. My kids love Pokemon. They never played any of the games. Well, they played Pokemon Snap a bit on the new Switch.
They've franchised it to the point where they're touching so many bases that they can keep so many people involved, and it's just riding off of, at the moment, nostalgia and being kid friendly. So the kids are still into it because it's kid friendly and the plushies and everything. But
my kids have Pokemon pajamas,
but don't play the games.
And Pokemon underpants.
I don't think you could say they're riding, like, their writing off makes it feel like I feel like creatively they are coasting, but like commercially they aren't. Like commercially, that franchise is only becoming bigger, and it's only becoming bigger.
For sure, but they're not. I think Pokemon has been coasting design-wise since it came out. Like they hit a formula, and this is the thing. Like when we talk about them ruining a franchise, what do they do? Because do you stay true to what your IP is and what your franchise is to keep people invested, which I think is what Pokemon has done. But now everyone just complains, oh, they're reusing Pokemon, oh, they're not adding anything new. But when they try and do something new, like with Arceus or the 3D stuff, people are just like, wow, this is garbage. I think the 3D stuff should have happened years ago. But they're just not doing enough. Like it runs like shit, it looks like shit. But the gameplay is still the stuff they've done to move it forward. Like the day they introduced the mechanic of having Pokemons in tall grass and you being able to see them, it's great. Like that should have been a thing in the beginning, and I'm glad they're doing it, but they're just not doing enough. And I know what's going to push Game Freak to.
What was the game where you could see the Pokemon? Was that Sword and Shield? Is that the first one?
No, it was before that. It was in a 2D one. Chat will remind me.
Like
it was
X and Y or one of those.
It might have been X and Y.
Yeah.
Chat will know, but like,
Yeah, why fix what ain't broke, I suppose.
Exactly, but there's also a point of like, this is working, but we need to do more to push the franchise to the next level. And I think the 3D Arceus was just a cash grab, terrible game.
I guess we just need to design another 150 of the buggers for the next one.
I do not think Arceus was a cash grab.
I fucking hate Arceus.
I don't. You can hate it, but I just don't. It tried something different, whether it succeeded or failed.
Yeah, but so did Sword and Shield, right? Oh, not Sword and Shield. I don't know. Violet and Scarlet.
I don't know. Arceus felt cheaply made to me.
It felt like it was like their heart. One step forward, two step back.
It was a prototype for Violet and Scarlet, and they decided to charge money for it.
But it doesn't play like Scarlet and Violet.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's because they then put a few more years into its development and turned it into a game rather than like.
I mean,
let's not get into a big argument over where and when Pokemon was actually ruined.
I just want to say my last big theory is Pokemon's 30th anniversary is going to be in about a year and a half, and I think that's going to be the next mainline Pokemon game. I do not think will come out until then, and I think it's going to be a fucking 10 out of 10 game of the year.
I mean, I hope so. I want the franchise
They're doing
to be good.
They're doing it.
Do you? Okay. Well, here's something that I often ask people when they propose to me like that. Do you think that's going to happen because it's likely to happen, or because it's the thing you would like to happen?
Yes. Yes. That is the thing I want to happen. I want to believe. As a kid, 30 years ago, I fucking loved those little guys. I remember when the cartoon aired and I had this like aerial antenna on a TV and trying to pick up a channel a couple towns over that was airing the cartoon, and it just felt magical.
Even in these situations where we're discussing franchises that died who may have not deserved it or whatever, I think at the end of the day, we all want games to be good. I was talking to a dev who messaged me recently. I can't say who they are because of NDA things, but we were just talking about a big project, and its potential and stuff like that. And we were getting kind of negative in how we were talking. But at the end of the day, I had to reiterate, I want this game to be good. I want all games to be good for the players and the devs, right? We want this industry.
I mean, every franchise we brought up because there was at some point we really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, yes, you can't
Mario or a Zelda,
You can't ruin what hasn't, you can't ruin a cake that hasn't been baked yet.
Yeah.
You got to have some time with a lovely cake.
Part of the reason we didn't bring up sports games. I'm sure people who play sports games every year could be like, it was Madden. It was pretty much when EA bought the NFL license and there was no competition anymore, and so they could rest on their laurels. But if we don't care about that franchise, so that's why we're not talking about it.
Those are the examples of games that have just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And
if there's no competition, why care?
Yeah. People keep buying it.
Yeah.
Well, the chat's got a whole bunch of suggestions, so I think
Yeah.
we should go through the super chats that I'm seeing on the horizon. We start by Jacob Kitty, who gives $2 and says, by selling it to Disney. Well, that wasn't Ubisoft's fault when they had to make Star Wars Outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just every franchise as a whole when they sell to Disney.
Yes.
I mean, I would say Marvel movies got pretty damn good for a while when they sold to Disney. That gave us the sort of three phases, or phase 2 and 3 at least.
Mm-hmm.
But then they had to keep going because there must always be more.
There must be more. Andor is cool. So we got Andor and Last Jedi. We got two very cool Star Wars things out of.
Look, if you keep throwing shit at a wall, sooner or later it's going to fly out the window and hit a person you hate in the face.
Yeah.
But 90% of the time, you're just going to end up with a very shitty wall.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dr. Theo, member for 8 months and tip jar, and then gives a $5 super chat. Ooh, he didn't need to do that.
Ooh.
And then says, I wonder how they'll handle an RE5 make. Will they make the single player more bearable? Will it be forced two player? Will they keep the boulder punching? They're not going to do an RE5 make, Dr. Theo. I think the thing they're most likely to do is sort of start a new continuity off the Resident Evil 4 make, but they're not going to remake the original Resident Evil 5. They just aren't.
Yeah.
Maybe like a Leon centric campy new game off the
what's Jill been up to?
Well, she was getting brainwashed in Resident Evil 5.
Yeah, before she got possessed. Yeah.
Getting brainwashed and then had to run around with a very skimpy jumpsuit with the zip pulled all the way down for a while.
Yeah. It's it's interesting because it feels like they still have like a little bit of a holding pattern because they could still go back and futz with RE0, Code Veronica. And I honestly do think they're going to just go back and remake one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have it look and play like the 2 and 3 remakes.
Over the shoulder one. Oh
god.
Yeah.
Like they remade King's Quest 1 in the SCI engine, but then they developed, VGA technologies, and then they'd blown their remake load too early.
Yeah.
I think it was fan made actually. They made a remake of King's Quest 1 in VGA sometime further down the line, but it's going to be like that. They remade RE1 too early. Should have waited.
That was the problem. Oh, the RE remake is so good.
Mm-hmm.
If you do so.
Yeah.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, on the topic of ruined franchises, I cannot look at Overwatch the same again. That franchise died when they introduced roll locks and did F5
Mm-hmm.
Is this outside our purview?
No, I was quite big into Overwatch and Overwatch 2.
I played it a little bit. I remember playing, having fun for a while playing as Soldier 76 because he was just easy mode.
Yeah, playing a shooter rather than
when they did 5v5, was it not 5v5? 5v5?
No, it was 6v6, and you had two tanks in Overwatch 1, and then they changed it, but they may have changed it back now. I'm not sure. Anyway, when some of the devs left and people started changing everything for what I think were legit reasons. I think the reasons were when you had two tanks, the games turned into stalemates where there was just too much health and too much, of that. So they tried to make it more swingy by having one tank and boosting the tank's power. Ruined the franchise for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, I think Overwatch was ruined via its monetization and promise of a narrative mode, and then completely removing that. Rather than just one thing. It's a whole host of things for Overwatch rather than just one thing in isolation, I think.
Sussis Guru 2000 gives €5 and they nominate Command & Conquer. They ruined C&C by turning it into mobile garbage.
Haven't played
I'm curious. Now I'm trying to think, because there have to be a handful of examples of franchises that got ruined by chasing the infinite mobile money. The free-to-play mobile money. Not that that's necessarily poison, but most of the time it feels like poison, right?
Well, that's sort of the live service area, isn't it? Dungeon Keeper, Eric brings up.
Yeah.
They tried to make a mobile version of that. That went along the way those games are usually made.
Yeah.
And that sort of Facebook Farmville style
franchise, right? EA's kind of dug early graves for a lot of things.
That sort of thing doesn't usually pivot completely to it. They just sort of spin off into it.
Yeah, in the
I
same
would
way,
say.
with Blizzard, we had the Diablo Immortal, which people were like, this ruined the franchise. And then Diablo 4 came out and sold a shit ton, and over what people seem
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, but
Hey.
people do not like Diablo 4. That's a game series that I was going to mention that is trying to kill itself repeatedly. 3 tried to kill
Please
itself.
stop buying us. I want to die.
Yeah, 3, Immortal, 4, they've all in their own ways tried to kill the franchise. But
It's funny. It seems like the sweaties don't like Diablo 4, because I know a lot of casuals who fucking love Diablo 4.
Yeah.
They're not online. They're just like, this game's sick as hell.
Yeah, no, I can dig that. I
Yeah.
was one of the sweaties who did not
Yeah.
like Diablo 4, but was
Yeah.
big into
I
Diablo 3
didn't
after.
mind Diablo 4. There's a lot of things I didn't like about it, but I could sort of listen to a podcast and click through it.
Yeah.
I remember being really annoyed by Diablo 3 by the suddenly in always online thing.
Yeah.
And, we didn't complain about that enough, and then that became the standard.
Yeah.
I mean, sticking with Blizzard, you could say, and we talked about this, Jay, when we were streaming the latest expansion, that World of Warcraft kind of inadvertently killed a lot of the other Blizzard franchises, because so many of the resources went towards WoW, and they started viewing everything as, if you don't make as much money as this, why are we putting time and effort into it?
Yeah.
Because WoW was so big.
Yeah, WoW tried to kill itself.
Yeah.
Anyone who plays WoW will know that there was a string of bad expansions leading up to Shadowlands,
Well,
and a lot of people left. It's one of the main reasons why Final Fantasy 14, which started garbage and then reinvented itself, why so many players jumped ship to that game, was because the Blizz devs, I guess, just it could have been direction, it could have been because they've been doing it for 20 years, right? But it was dying, but they've turned it around. And that's what I want to see with franchises. I want to see them fall into these slumps. Well, I don't want to see that, but see them climb out. And I think that's what encourages new and exciting things in the industry. When these big franchises start to lose their players, they have to reinvent themselves and do something new for them. And they either die or they come out of the ashes. And it's always good to see them come out of the ashes.
Fox D is $5 says, thinking of a work of art as a franchise or a media property is a sign you've already ruined it. Buzzwords are poison to art. See, I was about to say, counterpoint, Back to the Future 2 is better than Back to the Future 1. But then I realized Back to the Future is still, I wouldn't call it a franchise, it's just a serial. It's 3 films that tell one story from start to finish. And Robert Zemeckis has worked very hard to ensure that nobody tries to reboot or remake it at any point.
Yeah, which is actually commendable and kind of shocking. Commendable also because he's made some bad movies over the last 20 years, so it's commendable that he hasn't tried to go back to that.
Was it you that we had the conversation where you were like, name a Robert Zemeckis movie in the last 20 years that's good?
What is there a good one this century?
Was that in a meeting? Yeah, we had that chat in a meeting. That was great. I didn't believe you until I looked up his recent.
And you're like, oh damn, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, all right, fair, you're right.
Yeah.
Don't tell me Back to the Future 2 better than 1 is a hot take, Jim Van Feather. I mean, you go.
Back to the Future 2 is better than Back to the Future 1.
There's like 4 different time periods. There's that joke with the hologram Jaws bites Marty McFly, and he says the shark still looks fake. How could you like Back to the Future 2 less than the others?
I mean, I know some people who like the first. I think saying 3 is the best one is a hot take. Saying 1 or 2 is the best one is not a hot take, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think the remake that's not out yet is the best one, honestly.
It's funny because all 3 sort of do their own thing. Well, 3 hits a lot of the same points as the first one, just in Old West times rather than the 50s. But they're all sort of unique in their own way.
Would you guys be against a Back to the Future limited series?
Starring Tom Holland?
Yeah, starring Tom Holland. One that just tells that narrative over like a season of a show rather than in movies.
No, shut up. It is perfect forever. Back to the Future.
We need to see what other stuff he does with his mom. They didn't go deep enough into the mom stuff that was going on.
And we moving hastily on.
Yeah.
Verboek de Heer de Dunkelheit gives €2 and says, I got nothing today. Say something you want to hear. Awooga.
Yeah,
your turn.
I read a script this morning that had the word yuck in it. Shout out to Jesse Schwab. I heard that in Goofy's voice, and so I liked the yucks.
Oh, I came up with a joke I'm writing like a review of the Dead Rising remaster, and I wrote a joke about the mini chainsaw that made me laugh. Because I think they reduced the damage for it in the remaster, so I made a joke that goes, "That thing used to fuck up psychopaths like a Dead by Daylight balance patch."
Badooch.
Yes, I was proud of that one.
The thing I want to hear is someone telling me Beyond Good and Evil 2 is coming out, but we know that's not happening. So
Well, it's nice to want things.
Well, like I said in my Beyond Good and Evil Fully Emblematic, let's just pretend something was Beyond Good and Evil 2. Did you ever play Kena Bridge of Spirits? That was about a lady with dark hair who used a staff. Just pretend that's back.
Pretend she crash landed on that planet. Yeah.
Yeah, pretend that's Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go play that.
Okay, Sovereign gives €5. It says, Marty, can you please yell, "He can't keep getting away with it," in reference to today's Battle Masters?
Away with it. Spoilers, he can't keep getting away with it.
No, he's not going to win. I don't think he wins the next one. Oh, no, wait. The next
we don't
one
know what the next one is.
No.
We don't know what the next one is.
Because we've got one in the tank, but we're going to do another one before that one for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Is the plan.
You son of a bitch.
Have you done your one of that yet, Jay?
No, I've been moving house, so it's which is kind of good because we redid the rules. But no, I'm in the process of setting up. I need to download the game and get it done. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't want to say things and ruin it. It's good. I love Battle Masters. It's literally my favorite thing
Everyone watch today's episode on the original Super Mario Brothers, and the conceit is get as far as you can on a single life without killing any enemies. And let me tell you, you need to rewire your brain playing that game as a pacifist.
Everyone go watch Battle Masters so we have an excuse to keep making it, because we all love making it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, going 3D, but it varies. Good for Mario, bad for Sonic. Mario did it by locking itself in a room for like a year and iterating until it was actually good. That was like the one game that got 3D platforming to work.
Yeah, it's funny for his. I talked about this in my Mega Man Legends episode of the archive a month ago or whatever. But for every example of like a Metal Gear Solid or a Final Fantasy or a Zelda or a Mario that gracefully moved into 3D, you have your Castlevanias, your Earthworm Jims, your Sonics that did not move so gracefully.
There's a million 3D platforming franchises on the PS1 that didn't survive past the early PS1 era.
Do you
remember
Croc's coming back?
Croc, yeah, that springs to mind. Croc. What's that one? Punky Skunk? Or the skunk that's a punk?
That you absolutely made up Punky Skunk, the skunk that's a punk.
Can you smell toast?
Yeah. Punky Skunk, the skunk that's a punk?
Look, I was Googling images of shitty PS1 mascot platformers to make a point in my upcoming Astrobot review. And one of them was just something called... It was something like Punky Skunk.
Punky Skunk? Oh, I remember this little skunk.
Somebody call a bondulance. We're having a collective stroke.
Punky Skunk.
Was it called Punky Skunk?
Cover. It was called Punky Skunk, yeah.
Punky Skunk.
I believe it was a 2D platformer, though.
Oh, okay.
Yuki Yotoi.
Might as well have called him like Metal Marsupial.
The developers, speaking of metal, they was the same developers of Metal Slug. They created Metal Slug. They made a whole Metal Slug.
Do you remember Shadow Man?
I do remember Shadow Man.
That was basically a 3D platformer.
That's true, yeah.
Sort of in that sort of American McGee's Alice sort of fucked up theming kind of way.
A lot of forgotten, sort of dark, M-rated gothic horror platforming games of that era.
Do you remember Apocalypse? Do you remember Apocalypse starring Bruce Willis?
Yep.
Oh man.
Yikes.
Yikes indeed. Fungus Finder gives to... Oh, hang on, missed one. Fox D gives $5. There's too many franchises follow an arc. 1, great idea. 2, improves on one in every way, game of the year. 3, tries a new direction, fails horribly, ruined.
What do we got?
Or
we got
3
there. Yeah.
Or 3 keeps trying to do the same shit that worked the first 2 times and eventually going stale, like Resident Evil. And then like the arc begins anew when they get back around to the great idea part.
If you had to put one point where it kind of lost its way for Assassin's Creed.
Ooh, 3.
You think 3 lost its way?
Yes, because the historical period they chose was too boring, and the gameplay
flat.
was too forgettable.
Wait, is 3 Brotherhood or is 3 the one we're in America?
3 is 3.
3 is
the American one.
Three.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
was
yeah,
it set
American
in?
one.
American history.
Yeah,
that
American
one,
War of
I agree.
Independence.
Um,
Because American War for Independence, bad subject matter. It was boring. Mostly a political conflict. Should have gone with the Civil War. Much more on theme.
So, while I'm not crazy about 3, I feel like they pull up from the nosedive really well with Black Flag. I'm an ardent Unity defender.
As I keep saying, Black Flag is a great pirate game. It sucks when it's being Assassin's Creed.
When you're on land, yeah, when you have to tail people. I'm a Unity defender, and I fucking love Syndicate. It lost me when it became an open world RPG with Origins and Odyssey and Valhalla. That's when it lost me.
I've never played
That's
any
when
of
it
the
felt
RPG
like.
ones.
That's when it felt like it was trend chasing. That's when it felt like it was like, well, fuck, The Witcher is the biggest game. People love The Witcher. They love Skyrim.
3 literally killed it for me. I haven't played Black Flag. I haven't played any of the. I haven't played Unity Syndicate. I haven't played.
You play Syndicate. You probably hang out with Jack the Ripper. You're in.
I mean, merry old England.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, if they made Assassin's Creed Wisconsin, I'd be all over that.
So much cheese.
So much cheese. Tons of serial killers here to chase down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a modern
Hello,
day
Mr.
Assassin's Creed.
Dharma. What are you doing today?
God.
Having to tail Jeffrey Dahmer through downtown Milwaukee. I'm in it.
Go to like gay bars.
That sounds great. Yeah. I would be loving. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Bungus Finder gives $2. It says there is literally a gene named Sonic Hedgehog. Fancy that.
A gene?
Yeah, I guess some nerd whose job was to name a gene at some point named it Sonic Hedgehog. The way sometimes when people have to name animals, they name them after famous things.
So to be clear to people listening, this is GENE, not like denim jeans.
Yeah,
Yes,
there aren't somebody's
GENE.
genes named Sonic Hedgehog.
And how half the asteroids are named after Hanna-Barbera characters because they were named by, scientists who were watching Hanna-Barbera cartoons in the 60s.
Yeah, or like wanted to impress their kids. I hope the Sonic Hedgehog gene becomes so big that they have to reference it in Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Brother, we have the same Sonic Hedgehog gene.
Now I'm just imagining that whole dynamic, but with Sonic and Shadow.
Oh my God.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says Sonic still exists today because of fans, which is a double-edged sword. You get good games like Mania, but 06 Boom and Forces get made. No middle ground.
What the fuck is Boom?
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Boom, yeah, it's a Sonic game.
Yeah, Sonic Boom. It's pretty easy to just not play the games made by Sonic Team and only play the games made by fans like Sonic Mania.
I did a marathon that I did Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2, and then I stopped. So my marathon was 2 games long. But then I jumped back in for Frontiers and I loved it. And there's a Sonic presentation, I believe either tonight or tomorrow morning, and they're going to show off the future of Sonic. And let me tell you,
oh Jesus!
Give me more Frontiers. We can just put it down in the calendar.
Is he still a teenager? He's got to be like 45 by now. All the games he's been in.
Sonic?
Old man Sonic.
He stopped being a teenager when he kissed that woman.
Yeah. That's when he came of age. And he got his first erection.
The only thing that would make me respect the Sonic franchise is if his age was canonical, and over the games he's been getting slightly slower each time.
What's that Sonic mod where they replace the rings with onion rings, and if you eat them, you get fatter?
Sounds great. That sounds great.
That's so good.
Sounds like a Carl's Jr. tie-in.
Please, Eric.
Also, before we move on to the next one, we got a Ko-Fi donation from Tungsten. At this point. Thank you so much, Tungsten. Their message, EA fucked over Respawn on Titanfall 2's release date, and the success of Apex meant that developing a new Titanfall game is extremely unlikely, as the studio is now split working on Star Wars and Apex. Would have really liked to see what level design the sequel would have had. Completely agree.
If you want to learn more about that, DevHeads, one of our fellow creators, Tina, worked on Titanfall 3. So,
oh really?
And then went to work on what it span into Apex Legends. Like, she was a producer on it, and has spoken extensively on this topic. So if you want to learn more about how these things were put together and what happened, Check out
Here's the thing,
Cuphead.
I really like Titanfall 2. I'm fine with not having any more. People should stop just demanding more of what they like.
But I want a sick ass 8-hour single player first person shooter campaign, and no one's giving me that.
That's what Titanfall 2
Call of
was.
Duty-
Just
Call of
enjoy
Duty.
Titanfall 2.
I want more of it. I want one every. Just give me one every 5 years. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, play indie shooters. I don't know.
Oh, the campaigns aren't as good. Listen, indie games are great at a lot of things. Replicating what I want from my big old summer blockbuster is not one of them.
Oh, well, fair enough. Give it a few more years. They'll probably unlock some Unity asset packs in the store that lets you make Titanfall.
We're not getting 3D Mario Maker. No indie team is making the next Titanfall 2. I need my Johnny EA to come.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Johnny EA needs to save me.
Race Car Lock comes along with $5 and says, "You're not getting out of here without a Silent Hill rant, Yards. Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4 are good. I like 2 best, and then 4, and then 1, and then 3. The Western ones are all shit. The best one is probably Shattered Memories, and only marginally. And the new remake's going to ruin everything. The remake of Silent Hill 2 is going to ruin it.
However, if you're PR for Konami, please send me a code because I've been trying to track down who works PR for Konami, and they just don't exist.
Are we holding out much hope for a review code for Silent Hill 2?
I can't find out who represents that game.
Okay,
I literally searched. I've never got an email.
Silent Hill 2. If you represent Silent Hill 2, get in touch.
Get in touch with me. Don't get in touch with Yahtzee. Don't be mean. If you get in touch
because
with me,
hey,
play it.
I was like talking shit about the RE4 make long before it came out, and we were like one of the first ones to get a review code. I think because of that, they were like, "Hey, here's the guy we need to convince." Silent Hill 2, give me a code because I'm the guy you need to convince. I'm the guy you need to win over on this.
Plot twist: the representative is Kojima.
Oh no! I thought PT was really good.
I am so excited that we're getting a Death Stranding presentation. So this week is TGS, the Tokyo Game Show. A lot of weeb shit from this guy. A lot of weeb shit. We're getting our Sega present. Did you see the new Yakuza game that got announced? Fucking pirates?
No.
Yes. They're getting some more mileage.
Yeah.
Getting some more mileage out of the map of the previous game, like they always do, I say.
Smart. Reuse it. It's like modern day Hawaiian pirates, but like with pirate ships and shit. Seems great.
Yes.
I'm so down.
Dumb as hell.
Is there actually going to be like ship sailing mechanics? Because if there is, I'm down.
Ooh, I actually don't know. That'd be good.
It'd be
like
weird
Black Flag, but with Yakuza.
Look at Majima.
Black Flag, but with Yakuza's story. That sounds great.
Yakuza.
Yakuza. Oh, it needs to be called that. That's such a great name.
Absolutely.
It's good.
Probably doesn't translate so well.
Oh.
Hairy Sun 94 gives $5 and says, "Jamates, what's your fave JoJo part and your fave JoJo protagonist overall? Mine are part 7, Steel Ball Run, and part 4's Josuke. Also love you guys."
Seriously.
Love you too. My favorite part is I can't remember the names of the parts. But the one with Jotaro going to Egypt, that whole part is my favorite when they introduce stands. And my favorite protagonist is probably Gio Giovanni, and my favorite villain is Kira by far.
Oh, all right, shut up, you weebs.
It sounds like
anime I watch.
It sounded like you were trying to make up a bunch of names.
But that's JoJo's because all of the characters are named after bands.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's clues in the name there, Marty.
Some of the villains are Dio, AC/DC. Like they're just named after bands. It's dumb.
Yeah, isn't there a main character called REO Speedwagon?
REO Speedwagon's one of the characters from the first part, yeah.
Crazy. Fox D gives $5 and says, "How to kill a sports game franchise in one stroke. Get the exclusive license. Madden's been trashed since 06, and MLB's last good game was MVP 2005. Okay, I don't play sports games. They're for nerds.
I feel like people like the modern baseball games, but I also don't play the baseball games. So,
as a Brit, never played one in my life.
You know the worst thing about sports nerds is that they don't think they're nerds.
Yeah. Agreed.
You just said I don't play it. I'm not a nerd.
Yeah.
'Cause they're nerds.
People who are really into sports are nerds, just like any other kind of nerd, being someone who's really into something. But sports
Agreed.
nerds are the worst because they, for some reason, think it's not nerdy to be a sports nerd. They think
I
it's
cancel-
some kind of masculinity thing.
I cancel it out because I spend Sundays watching football while playing Zelda on my Switch. So those cancel each
Yeah.
other out.
Because
How's
you're a
it not
nerd.
transcend?
Anyway.
Rude.
I mean, how is wearing the kit for your team different to cosplay?
I don't know. I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Mhm.
I will
I-
leave you to contemplate that particular
Sound off in the
question
comments.
as we move on to the
Done.
next one.
Yeah, you're right.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says Crash stroke Spyro feels stale because of greedy publishers. Oh, you say that, but both of them appear in Astrobot, so they're actually very fresh and interesting.
And they're both owned by Microsoft now, which makes it interesting that Microsoft.
I also
characters-
just think there's not much you can do with the franchises, so hence why they've just kind of like the devs want to work on other
Yeah.
stuff, which is what's happened to those devs. Like Insomniac
Yeah,
and Naughty Dog have
they've
just moved on
just
to bigger and better things.
They've just fallen back on remastering the originals and sequels that feel uncannily like the originals, like Crash Bandicoot 4.
You know what? You know what's weirdly missing from Astrobot? Without spoiling, there's no Square Enix representation, no Final Fantasy, no anything.
No?
And there was a Final Fantasy VII nod in the original Astrobot, like the or not the original, the PS5 launch.
Yeah, there was a cloud. Or
Wait a minute. Lara Croft appears in Astrobot, and Lara Croft's now a Square Enix property.
Well, not anymore. I believe they've sold her off to
Who
Crafted
can
or
keep,
something, or Amazon.
Not Johnny Crafted, but
Not
Lara.
Johnny Crafted.
who can keep track of these things? The real like weird oversight in Astrobot, Twisted Metal.
Oh my god, there's
Yeah.
there's no like
They
cloud.
just own that too.
Yeah, but there is no Twisted Metal in Astrobot.
Too many. They wanted a half-naked murderous clown in the game, and they were like, "Oh, maybe this doesn't." There's plenty of murderers in the game, though. Fucking
Yeah,
Last of Us is in there. Great,
fucking
killer.
fucking pyramid heads in there.
Yeah, that man murders.
I know. I played through the whole game hoping there'd be a James Sunderland bot, but there wasn't. There was just a pyramid head bot.
And you just unlock a pillow that he can use.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says modern Naughty Dog wouldn't make Jack and Daxter today. Well, only because they ruined it with the second one by making it all dark and gritty.
Chasing trends. Exactly.
There you go.
Also, I think if I have the numbers correctly, every Jack game combined has sold 10 or 12 million copies, and The Last of Us Part 1 sold like 30 million copies. So I think you just go where money is.
I guess. I respected Naughty Dog when they like restricted their franchises to one per console.
Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot on PS1, Jack and Daxter on PS2, Uncharted on PS3, and then PS4 fucked everything up because there was an Uncharted on that, and then The Last of Us was on that, and The Last of Us was on PS5 as well.
Yeah.
So now it's all fucked up. What would have been Naughty Dog's PS5 franchise if not The Last of Us?
Yeah.
It should have been Last of Us only on PS4, and PS5 should have been something new. They should have.
I reckon we're going to see a revitalization of the 3D platformer. Like, do you reckon we'll get a Jack and Daxter after Astrobot and stuff like that? It's done so well.
I think. Well, Astrobot's only done well because it's ripped off Mario Galaxy, isn't it? And Mario's always been around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because Sony has Sly Cooper, they have Ratchet and Clank, but again, all those games like
they're all
Ghost of
super
Tsushima,
old.
yeah, and Ghost of Tsushima way outsold Sly Cooper, and the Spider-Man games fucking bury the Ratchet and Clank games in terms of sales. So
I mean, it's Astrobot's good. Astrobot's good, but it's weird that it's the cheerleader for the PS5 because it's so unrepresentative of what most PS5 games are these days.
Yeah.
5 has games.
I know. You watched my fucking Astrobot review this week. I cover this topic.
That God of War PC port did.
Oh yeah,
terrible. Like
it did.
Really?
Terrible.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Ragnarok or the first.
Ragnarok
one,
just came out.
Yeah, the PC sales are like 30k or something, which is like
that's not good.
really bad for a.
Huh. I guess everyone listened to my review when I said it was too boring and long.
Absolutely too long.
Gildon Yitich gives $5 and says, Beyond Good and Evil is a good example. Be so apprehensive about ruining your perfectly good franchise that you ruin it by never releasing anything.
I don't think
that
that's
was almost
why they
how
haven't done it.
that was almost how Duke Nukem ruined itself as well.
Yeah.
And then it ruined itself in the traditional way by bringing out a shitty game.
Yeah. And there's lots of reasons for why Beyond Good and Evil 2 isn't out. And I think being scared of ruining it, we need to remember with Beyond Good and Evil, it was an incredibly niche game. Like it didn't do really, really well.
You say
just
that, but I think it's sort of ahead of its time. It's reflective of a lot of the trends of modern game design in that it tries to do too many things at once.
Yeah. It's very true. It does.
That's probably why it's apprehensive about coming out, because it's not ahead of its time anymore. Acoustic Savager gives $2 and says, Did Prince of Persia get ruined? Oh, multiple times, Acoustic Savager. It's another one that will always come back on strength of name recognition alone.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back and play Prince of Persia 2008 one of these days, because I remember mainly hating it just because it wasn't the Sands of Time, but I think it deserves another look. I remember I do think the combat sucked, though.
That would be a fun... did you review it originally?
Yes.
That'd be a fun revisit review for a slow time.
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, the Four Sands of Time, it was ruined by Prince of Persia 3D, which was sort of trying to rip off Tomb Raider after the Tomb Raider was successful. Yeah. And now, of course, it's a 2D platformer again. So
Lost Crown is really good.
I haven't played it, and I love Prince of Persia and Metroidvanias. I
keep forgetting that was this year. That game was great.
I really need to play it. My personal channel, before I came to The Escapist and then Second Wind and stuff, my first ever videos to ever do well was a trilogy of videos on Sands of Time, War Within, and Two Thrones. I really like the franchise.
It's a really great trilogy, that. I would think if you cherry picked all three of those games and smashed the results together into one big game, you'd have as near to perfection as makes no odds.
I agree. They all individually have a lot of flaws, but they do.
Sands of Time, great story.
Agreed.
Warrior Within makes the combat really good.
Yep.
Two Thrones. Okay, just the first two.
I like the aesthetic.
Just take
the third, and the level design is really good. I also like the inclusion of some stealth elements. The level design in 2 is just absolutely mental and crazy, and
it was almost Metroidvania-y in 2.
Yeah, the time switching, it's wild.
I sort of liked that. Well,
me too. It just gets very confusing very quick. I've spoken to while I was on the Sea of Stars doc. They were like, "Oh, do you want to talk to our level designer?" And I was speaking to him, and turns out he was the level designer on all 3 of those games. And
you don't say.
Yeah,
the original Sands of Time team is all over the place. I used to be friends with a dude back in Brisbane who apparently worked on the chariot racing sequences in Two Thrones.
Yeah, you told me that. Wild.
Yeah, and he never let me
forget against you, right?
He never let me forget. Well, we were mates, but he never let me forget that I talked shit about those in my review.
You specifically talk shit about the stuff he worked on.
Yeah.
They're garbage. No offense to the dude, but those chariot races are just fluff.
Yeah, he asked me to give me my opinion on his the draft for a novel he'd written, and that kind of sucked as well.
It's all about chariots.
Sorry. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, Valve games aren't exactly ruined, but halted for money.
Did Half-Life ever have a stumble in your mind?
No, Half-Life there was never a bad Half-Life. They've just sort of gotten the Beyond Good and Evil 2 problem where they don't want to put anything out in case it's anything less than perfect and mold breaking.
Yeah. Mold breaking is why I think they've done it, and their internal structure at Valve is just so it's a utopia and hell at the same time. So nothing's getting made because people, they're not breaking the mold enough for them to feel like it's going to live up to any kind of expectations, rather than money.
Yeah. Half-Life 1 and 2 were both pivotal games in the history of PC gaming. Half-Life 3 could never be the same.
Yep.
If we would have never gotten episode 2, I think I would have said episode 1 was pretty Half-Life 2 episode 1 was pretty unremarkable in my mind.
Yeah, it's very interstitial.
Yeah. It is insane to me that they were like, well, the future is episodic gaming, and then they released 2, and they're like, we're done.
Yeah.
We will end this on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. I
They're
mean,
like
in theory, it meant they could bring games out faster, but didn't really work out in practice, did it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, the future's VR. Release Alex,
Yeah.
the best VR experience ever made. And then was like, oh, we're done.
Future is over. We are done.
Too niche. Should have waited until everyone had, Matrix plugs in their spines.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Mr. Sadface gives $5 and says Ninja Gaiden 3 tanked without any involvement of Itagaki, though on the other hand, they moved on to Neo and he did Devil's Third, so there's that. Yeah, Devil's Third really sucked.
You might.
It was a Wii exclusive, a Wii U exclusive of all things.
Yeah. Devil's Third was a third. It was a Wii U exclusive third-person hack and slash.
Third-person
melee.
Third-person melee and shooter, which
it's also
is
one of the most valuable games if you own a physical copy of it for the Wii U because they produce.
I'm not surprised because they sold such like dog shit as well.
Yeah,
sounds cool.
I told this story before, but back at IGN, we had that game on our live show at E3, and it was like early in the morning, and so they came to our studio, and there was probably 75 people at the studio, doing all sorts of different things, and they catered lunch and dinner for us during E3, and
nice.
So lunch came or breakfast came, and Itagaki came for the live show with an entourage of like 20 people deep. He did a 5-minute segment, and then his entourage just fucking took all of the food and left. And so, like, for the fucking Devil's Third, Itagaki and his posse came and ate all of our breakfast while we were like writing news up for the Nintendo Direct or whatever. Yeah,
amazing.
Rockstar move.
Yeah, classic Itagaki. We started calling him Shitagaki after that, and we called it Devil's Third. So there you go.
Didn't we all?
That was the room. That was where he took our breakfast.
That was it, Eric. That
was it.
Ian Weeks gives $5 and says, "Love the books, Yahtzee. I was wondering, how do you spell the name of the ferret in the third Galaxy book, and how tall are they?" This is embarrassing. I've actually forgotten what the name of that character was, and I'll tell you why I've forgotten, because they didn't have a name until after I finished the first draft. And once I went back to it, I remember thinking, boy, this character ended up being kind of important. I should probably give them a name. And that was like a last-minute thing, so now I've forgotten what the name was. It didn't stick.
Well, how tall is he?
Oh, she was very small. They were like a little magenta ferret, like the size of a normal ferret. A sentient alien.
Like the size of Daxter from Jak and Daxter?
Yeah, if you like. They were a sentient alien magenta ferret. I think in the original draft, they were like a human, but then I was thought, no, let's make it more interesting. They're a ferret now.
I mean, it works, right?
Yeah.
Zaratha gives $5 and says, about a user-friendly 3D level maker, there's a pretty fine one on Fall Guys. Nintendo could pull that off. And for the topic, Alone in the Dark. Yeah, the trouble with 3D development, the trouble with the 3D development tools is that once you want to give people like a degree of freedom with creativity, but the more of that you give, the harder it is to teach people how to use the bloody thing.
It just seems it's messy, and Nintendo doesn't do messy.
Yeah, Dream springs to mind.
Yeah,
controllers are the issue. I think with a mouse and keyboard, it's way more doable. But
yeah,
with a controller, I mean, Tony Hawk did it well on consoles with a controller.
Okay,
back in the day.
Yeah,
and as for Alone in the Dark, there was never a good one to ruin, if you ask me. Because It was like a pioneer. It was like the first 3D survival horror, arguably. But in retrospect, it's aged like milk. And there was never really a good one that took the name after that.
Yeah.
Anyway. Doublefinger gives €5 and says, did Borderlands 3 hurt the franchise? On the other hand, is Borderlands even a successful franchise? It had one beloved game and a bunch of so-so ones. Well, there haven't been any Borderlands games since 3, so probably. I remember a lot of people were down on it.
Wonderlands, which was...
Oh, yes, but that was its own thing.
Yeah, and then Borderlands 4 is in development, they announced.
And then the movies sort of tainted the IP to a certain extent.
Yeah. I mean, Borderlands 3 still sold crazy amounts. Like, Borderlands 3... I'm sure sold more than it's probably 15-20 million, and so it's sold more than every Jack and Daxter game ever. So I guess what's our definition of? I don't know why I'm going after Jack and Daxter here. I really like Jack. I guess what's our definition of successful? Is it critical? Is it commercial?
Has it meant the developer got sold to a Chinese corporation?
Ah, that's true success.
Yeah.
No. Gearbox still their own thing. Last I checked. Hunter Road, remember
They're owned by
10
someone
months?
gross.
Oh, probably.
Aren't we
well,
all, Marty?
Yeah.
They all are, but they're still permitted
Yeah.
to have an identity, at least.
Yeah.
It seems. Hunter Road, remember for 10 months in the Green Gang, says, as much as I love the game, Saints Row 4 killed Saints Row. Yeah, that's a good way to kill yourself. That's like, you know that guy who committed suicide by gluing his hands to his head, tying like a piano wire noose around his neck and then throwing himself off a building. So he ended up bungee jumping off the building with like his head in his hands. That's the way Saints Row 4 killed itself. The best way possible. It didn't ruin the franchise. It ended it the way franchises should end.
That's so metal. What?
Is this going to be a new semi-emblematic? All about this guy? Incredible.
That's mental.
I don't know if it actually happened. I just heard a story about how like the most perfect way to kill yourself. Piano wire garrote bungee cord that's slightly longer than the piano wire cord, and then super glue your hands to your face.
I love it.
And then jump off a building. Yeah. Tsunami Dusha gives $20 and says nothing, as is his wont.
Thanks, Tsunami Dusha.
Legend.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, what would be your last meals? Go as big as you want.
Oh, wow.
Well, there's a Super Duper Burger near where I live that does a really good grilled chicken sandwich. I'm kind of been craving one of those for a while now.
You know what? Treat yourself because you got one today.
I'd want something comfort-wise. I think I'd have bangers and mash, but a real good one. And because of that, I'll cook it. Give me the ingredients. I'll do my own.
I might want Japanese chicken katsu curry with
a big pile of curry.
With a big pile of rice and chopsticks to eat it with. Maybe some edamame beans.
Maybe like a key buried under the rice that I could use to escape death row.
That would be nice, yes. One of those things that, means that the lethal injection doesn't work.
Yeah.
Lethal injection antidote, like in the Saw films.
There you go, yeah. Yeah, sticking with burgers, if I could go as big as I want, there was a restaurant that used to exist in LA called the Hungry Cat. In Hollywood, and it had the greatest burger I've ever had, and I had it several times there, and it was the most amazing hamburger I've ever had, time and time again. And the restaurant closed. So if I can go as big as I want, the people killing me better travel back in time.
The name Hungry Cat makes me think it would be a fish restaurant.
Yeah, they had a lot of seafood and a lot of like oysters and shrimp and whatnot, but they had a burger on their menu. That was
the start to a sci-fi novel. You're a death row inmate. You ask to go back in time to go to food for your last meal, and then you escape. And then that's how.
And you're out here doing time crimes. Hell yeah,
time crimes. Yes. The best kind of crime. Time crime.
What would I like for my last meal? I would like a time machine on a plate, and they have to give you it because that's the rule.
Yeah.
Plasma Pause gives £2 and says, is Blizzard a decent game company anymore? No.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question.
They're making positive changes. I wouldn't say they're great, but they're moving in an okay direction. So
it sounds like the newest WoW expansion was good. Normies like Diablo 4.
There are no good big game companies anymore because at this point they're all just names, and the entire board of directors could get replaced tomorrow. No one would know.
Yeah.
What about good guy Nintendo out here trying to patent video game mechanics and sitting on them until they strike? Thanks, Nintendo.
Jesse came to me with an idea for that. Like, I think it's crazy to see how many video game mechanics are patented. right? Like already that they just don't sue each other, but they could, right? Nintendo own a bunch, for the longest time. I think maybe still the D-pad is patented, like having a cross D-pad. They just don't do anything. So yeah, it's really interesting to see what's going to happen with this Palworld patent thing. We shall see.
Gay Bear Bro 2, member for 10 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. Jacob Kitty gives $2 and says, unrelated question, Dr. House MD or Adrian Monk? Dr. House every time, because it's Hugh Laurie who is the best.
Hugh Laurie is the best, yeah. I think maybe Monk has better writing, because house writing is kind of samey and boring. But Hugh Laurie is great, so maybe it edges out because of Hugh.
I haven't watched either of them, but I'm sure they're both great. Dr. Jack Shepard, the main character of Lost, who was the greatest spinal surgeon to ever exist.
It's funny how having any job other than being a police detective somehow makes you a really good police detective in the world of television.
Yeah.
Being a really good coroner makes you a really good police detective. Being a really good crime writer makes you a really good. Being a really good magician's assistant makes you a really good crime solver.
Being really good at having OCD.
Yeah.
There you go. Jim Matchett, member for 10 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. Thanks, and then Jules Rowe gives $2 and says something have some money. Ooh woo.
Ooh woo. Indeed. We also got another pair of Ko-Fi donos that came in. Thank you so much. H just gave support. No message. Thank you so much, H. And Plasma Paws, thank you so much for the support. Would new Hitman be a ruined franchise? The monetization with the mission packs is diabolical, but the gameplay is so good. I mean, Hitman feels like that's one of those examples like Resi that had like a dip. I feel like people stopped caring about Hitman and what was it, like the blood money absolution?
Yeah. I think Hitman was just experimenting with itself for long enough that it finally hit its stride relatively recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a lot of dodgy ones along the way.
Yeah. I like the modern Hitman trilogy. I don't know what sort of monetization is going on there, but
well, the good thing about that sort of thing is that you don't have to engage with it. You could just play Hitman 1, 2, and 3 over and over again.
Yep.
Sussy Guru 2000 gives €5 and says, all the Saiyans are named after vegetables and all of Old Piccolo's spawn are named after instruments. Well, thank you for letting us know that, Sussy Guru 2000.
Old Piccolo's spawn. Wait, is Old Piccolo different than Piccolo the Green Man Piccolo? Is Piccolo a Piccolo Jr.?
I know this is a Dragon Ball Z reference, but I don't know anything about Dragon Ball Z.
I don't know much about Dragon Ball.
Piccolo is the only good father on the show. Because God knows Goku isn't a good father. Also, Sussy Guru, are you SVS Guru? Did you poke evolve into Sussy Guru? Congrats.
That's what I assumed. Fill my ass up. Speaking of old hands, gives 50 Norwegian kroner and says C&C got screwed over in its final game in conclusion to the story is where EA decided to experiment by demolishing the foundation of the games.
Well, that's never good.
Command and Conquer.
EA pulled together.
There you go.
Just in general.
Just pulled together.
Ellie Berry gives $4.99 and says, Yahtzee, you like 3 the least of the original Silent Hill games. Curious as to why. Well, mainly because... it's still good. All 4 of the original Silent Hills are good. But I just think it's the least of the 4 because I think trying to continue the plot left over by the first game was a little bit cheesy. I prefer Silent Hill when it's more about, intensely focused horror, focusing on a couple of characters, like in 2 or 4. I think it's got some pretty strong set pieces, but at the same time, it kind of overdoes them a bit. Like, literally bleeding walls? I mean, come on. Where's the subtlety?
Pulled together Silent Hill. Yeah, also saying one of those 4 is the worst of the 4 is still, like...
Yeah.
High praise. One of them has to be the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, which is the worst slice of pizza? They're all fine. I could eat any of them.
Yeah.
Juicy Jeff gives $5 and says, Twisted Metal PS3 sank the franchise with its questionable design structure and online multiplayer focus. The TM series was the OG hero shooter, IMO.
Yeah, each car felt very different, had its own personality and
Yeah.
styles to it. Yeah, I know there was like there've been rumors, scuttlebutt for a long time about Twisted Metal coming back, especially with the TV show premiering and doing well enough to get a second season. But
Oh, did that do well? Do
Came
it?
out.
I mean, there is.
yeah,
I mean, there are so many fucking TV shows on streaming these days.
yeah, they just announced there's like a Splinter Cell anime coming out, another Devil May Cry anime coming to
What?
Netflix.
What?
Yeah,
Man,
Sam Fisher-san. It might not be
it
an
never
anime. It
ends.
might be animated.
There's no prestige to getting adapted to TV anymore, is there? Because fucking everything is.
Agreed.
Anyway, Eddie from Outer Space gives €2 and says, very likely mentioned before, but Dead Space 3. Yes, it was mentioned before, Eddie from Outer Space.
Yes.
But thanks for your money.
Yeah, that might be the prime example.
Excuse me. Little windy pops. Tsunami Dusha gives $5 and says, on the topic, would you three say that there are more failures stroke bland games going open world than success stories? I do think once things go open world, they're all sort of gravitating to the same sort of bland Jiminy Cockthroat area.
Mm-hmm.
Although not always.
Yeah.
I think going open world works for certain franchises. I think it worked for Dark Souls when it moved to Elden Ring.
Agreed.
I think it worked for Batman.
Arkham. Yeah.
Yes, I think it worked for Batman. I think those are both very exploration focused games that benefit from an open world format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's building on top of something. For me, those franchises are great examples because they honed their craft to a sharp point through a series of games, and then went, like you had Arkham Asylum, which the revolutionized how you do that kind of cinematic combat, and then we're like, well, where do we go from this? Rather than doing this in corridors, well, let's take it into the open world. And even though Dark Souls and that franchise did it over multiple games, they perfected their combat and their level design, and then just spread it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just complements it rather than being the main focus.
I think if you've got a solid primary gameplay loop, you should, for one, do an open world version, and then for two, do a roguelike version.
Mm.
Because then everyone can just have lots of fun with your primary loop. Like Bloodborne's Chalice Dungeons. Every game with a good primary loop should have something like that.
Thanks, Bloodborne.
Juicy Jeff gives $5 and says, Yachts, thanks for remembering the state of Alaska with oh fuck off. It's how the lower 48 views us, and we view all of you contiguous cretins. Hi, Marty.
Hello, Juicy Jeff.
That's referencing the special video I made that you can only see if you're a member of the Patreon, in which I explain how to remember all 50 American states.
It is good.
And Washington, D.C., which apparently doesn't count as a state, regardless of what I said in that video. Dale Mallows gives $2 and says, fart, fart, fart.
Dale.
Thank you. Thank you, Dale.
Yeah,
Did you have chili for dinner? What's going on, Dale?
And then far less than too many frogs gives $2 and says, I mean, Rose Delta evolved into this.
Everyone should have to write a formal letter of apology every time they change their username.
Who's evolving?
Every time usernames change, you scare us.
I've been Yahtzee since like 1999, I think.
See?
Yeah, you got to be consistent.
Since 99?
Yeah.
Long time.
I just liked the word.
Remember Y2K? Were you scared?
No, as I recall, at the moment when the calendar flipped from January 31st, 99, from December 31st, 99 to January 1st, 2000, I was masturbating.
Great.
Because I was a teenager and I wanted to say I'd wanked across 2 millennia.
Just say that one for the Patreon. We can't be giving this away for free.
Well, it's not like I was going out to a party at midnight. I was like 17 and living in my parents' house.
I mean, fair.
I regret asking what you thought of Y2K, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
Tom Schrader D PLN gives P 25 PLNs and says, Piccolo, the best father, is the son of the old Piccolo. Oh, shut the fuck up about Dragon Ball Z.
I love Piccolo.
I don't
Piccolo's
care.
great.
I don't fucking care.
Piccolo's great. Just a good ass dad.
Then BS Marsh gives $5 and says, no message beyond thanks for all the great content.
Thanks, BS March. I bet you wish you didn't send that before Yahtzee's wank story.
You're welcome for Yahtzee's wank story.
Well, that would have been a good super chat to end on, but unfortunately, here's another one. Fox D gives $10 and says, do you think DLC-driven forever games like Europa Universalis 4, Sims 4, and Euro Truck Sim 2 help or hurt their franchises compared to frequent new releases? Well, I think that's how Guitar Hero died. They kept bringing out new ones when what they should have done was just stuck to one and then just released every known song in the universe for download.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's like you're naming those franchises. I'm not super versed in Europa Universalis, other than that's very hard to read. But the rest of those franchises feel like those kind of games where it's like there's people who just play those games, like those sort of like part-time job games. And so I think for those kinds of games, that release model kind of makes sense.
Eddie from Outer Space gives €5 and says, any thoughts on X-Files? Been watching it for the first time. Quality of episodes changed between okay to cheesy to great. Love it so far. Yeah, that was episodic TV
really good
at the time. That's how it worked.
And if you like it, our main man Darren has an entire book on it. He's
just put the Amazon link out. Kabam! Yeah, I bought the book and I read it.
Synergy, Marty.
When I did a rewatch of the series the other year, which I think it holds up. A, it holds up great. B, a ton of the folks who would go on to work on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, got their chops on that, and C, just the most impressive amount of cameos of people where you're like, oh my god, Aaron Paul's in this episode, Jack Black's in this episode, like just crazy. But,
it's crazy how huge the X-Files was back in the day. It was a
massive.
It was a pop culture cornerstone for a while.
Without the X-Files, we would have never got Lost. What a TV show!
Oh my god!
Again, I forgot that was a TV show again, and I thought you were saying that we would have been lost without the X-Files.
Happy 20th Lost.
And yes, I kind of agree. What's David Duchovny up to these days? Being very old with a big nose, I imagine.
He's very handsome still. He's very handsome.
Yeah, I guess it's easy to stay handsome when you got a face like a brick wall. And Gillian Anderson played Margaret Thatcher. Nice.
What?
She's still banging.
In The Crown.
Crown.
Oh, in The Crown.
Yeah,
The Crown. If you told me Dana Scully would one day play Margaret Thatcher, and if you told me that in like the late 90s when I was jerking off to her, I would have slapped you with my still moist hand.
2, 1. Happy New Year. Also, here's my copy of Lost Via Damus on the PS3.
Look at that.
We'll be doing an all-day
I've
stream
lost
of
a
it.
game?
Canonical game taking place between seasons 2 and 3.
What?
Yeah.
There's some canonical video games in the Saw franchise as well.
Ooh, those are some good October streams. Let's get some Saw up in.
But I've been thinking about Saw because I've just been like idly watching this series of YouTube videos I found recently that was some dude itemizing how much every Saw film would have cost Jigsaw.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Especially when he's like dying of a brain tumor. It's like, where do you get this money to build this stuff?
I might as well look it up just to shout out the guy. But yeah, the first film, relatively cheap. You could get away with like under 10K, I think. Yeah, it's a series called Foot the Bill by a YouTuber called Kitten Arcada.
Ooh, I like that.
Go watch it.
More super chats. Gay Bear Bro 2 gives $10 and says, just here to extend the video. Zaratha gives $2 and says, oh, so Kakarot is about carrots. I get it now.
See, Vegetable.
Yeah.
Vegetable.
Yeah. Radish. Napa, a Napa cabbage.
What's the one that's named after underpants?
Bloomers.
Yeah. Charles Coates gives $5 and says Dragon Ball is magic. Oh, brought them all out now. It's fucking convention.
Welcome. You're all welcome here. We're all
Ow.
sons of Goku and Piccolo here.
Named after veggies.
Apparently. Fungus Finding is $2 and says, pretty sure David is a hand model now, last I saw.
Patooch, that little Zoolander goof.
It is a Zoolander goof. That was nice.
Okay. And Double Finger gives €5 and says, has The Crown reached the point yet where the characters in The Crown can watch the first season of The Crown? I'm not caught up.
No, the most recent season was Princess Diana, right? Or at least she's winning a bunch of Emmys for it. So
Didn't
They'll
didn't it end
finish
with
after that, right?
didn't it end with the Queen dying in the end? Or at
I
least
don't know if
referencing the fact that the Queen's dead now.
I stopped watching. I don't know if they're still making it.
Hey, let's get our Deadpool on. How many years do you give King Charlie?
He doesn't. He's not
Ooh.
looking great.
No,
He's a bit swollen in places.
I like the main character Dead Rising.
I mean, the Queen Mum lived to over 100.
That's true. They probably have good doctors.
Yeah, it's because she
yeah.
drinks all that soup.
Yeah, love soup.
I give it at 10 years.
Great 10 years. I think I'll outlive us all.
Funny how, this exact thing happened with Queen Victoria as well. By the time she finally graciously popped her clogs, her first heir was like an old bastard and reigned for like 10 years tops.
Popped her clogs.
Popped her clogs,
Like it.
Ended up rung down the curtain and joined the choir invisible and all of that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Can we leave?
Can we? I'd really like to get my lunch. Yes. Well, thanks for listening.
I need to eat as well. It's like,
thanks for listening to the Windbreakers podcast, everyone. Where we were talking about ruining game franchises and the most efficient way to do so. I was Yahtzee Crowshaw. I make the series Fully Ramblematic, which you can watch every Wednesday. This week I'm doing Astrobot, the PS5 platformer, the surprisingly good PS5 platformer. And I'll also be playing a couple of new games in Yahtzee Tries that day, although I haven't decided what.
You're also going to be streaming tomorrow and Thursday. You're streaming
shit.
4 days in a row.
I know, I'm streaming all week this week because of
gosh.
various obligations. But yeah, we're playing Worlds of Aria. Me and Jack and Jesse, we're playing that tomorrow.
That'll be tomorrow at noon. And then our sponsor, Shadows of Doubt, you'll be playing the Shadows of Doubt 1.0 release on Thursday.
Well, I don't consider that work because I really like Shadows of Doubt.
There you go.
And I'm interested to see how 1.0 does because there was a lot to fix. Interface was dog shit in the early access version. Also, I've got a semi-ramblematic dropping on Thursday. Bit of a weird one this week. Hope you like it.
Any hint what it's on?
It's I'm not. You know what? I'm not going to spoil it. It's a little bit unusual.
It is. With being very vague, it has to do with one of the many franchises we mentioned today.
And it got me to indulge my acting chops, that I only ever pull out for my audiobooks these days.
Oh my god.
Yeah, when you sent in your script the other week, you're like, this is kind of a weird one. And I was like, you were not kidding. This is definitely kind of a weird one.
Yes, so you can all look forward to that. And that's it for my stuff. I was also joined by Jamate, who also does stuff. Jamate, plug the things you do.
It's me. I make a series called Design Delve where I talk about games and how they're made with my cartoon dog. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what next episode's on, but I've just released an episode on Concord and why that failed and the reasons why that might be true. And turns out I was contacted by some people. I may have been right. So check that one out. And also this week we have a episode of Dev Heads coming up, which a good friend of mine from Riot Games is going to be joining us, talking about how you transition a game from PC to mobile. So look forward to that. We'll see you there. That's me.
And I was also joined by Marty Sleever, who would also like to plug some things.
I have several things. Happy 20th birthday, Lost. Check out the episode of Battle Masters we talked about. I just put the link in there. It's great. All three of us participated, along with Jack and Casey and Jesse and Jesse and Jess. And it's a lot
Please
of Jason.
watch Battle Masters.
Yeah.
Please make Battle Masters popular. We want to keep making it.
We
It was
love
so fun.
making Battle Masters.
Yeah, this one was all about Super Mario Bros. Good stuff. And then, later today, Hidden Gems crew, containing 3 of those people I just mentioned, will be back 6 p.m. Central playing Lorne's Lure, which I didn't know what it was. And then I Googled it to make the art request. And I was like, damn, this game looks kind of neat.
Yeah, I had a go on it. It's like a first-person platformer of all
Yeah.
things.
It looks bleak.
Because it is very bleak.
Yeah. You know what? Aesthetically, it looks a little bit like Arctic Eggs. Remember Arctic Eggs? Remember when we were making eggs?
I very much remember you making me play Arctic Eggs, yes.
We had a great time. Between Arctic Eggs and Sonic Frontier, we really bonded.
Anyway, I have to go and eat something to
Me too.
restore the energy that Marty just used up exhausting me.
A little egg goof there.
So we'll see you all next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I love you.